LollieTasking is multitasking the Lola way. Join my mommy and other amazing women as they have random girl talks and laughs, all while trying to live a balanced life. This is LollieTasking.
Hello, world. I am so excited. This is our very first episode of LollieTasking. I am so glad you're here with us today. On today's episode, I have chosen one of my very, very good friends, Dr. Tammy, to talk to us. The episode is one that is near and dear to my heart. Dr. Tammy is a physician, hence the doctor. She is a wonderful woman of God. She has been married close to 5 years, and her husband have been dealing with infertility throughout this time. She's such a wonderful person, and she has agreed to come to the show to talk about her journey. We talk about some of the things that could have prevented, or I should say, some of the things that she wish she knew when she was younger. We talked about the situation. We talked about our culture and how it may have impacted her life at this point in time. We also talked about being a boss and planning for the future. She is on a mission to talk to young women to plan for the future if they want to be a mother. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed the show. Here is Dr. Tammy.
You know, sometimes you meet people and the connection is like a fake one.
Yeah, I can't. Tammy, you know your girl. I can't.
And
It's
so
either
you
there or
kind of
not.
you yeah, but what I've realized is when you meet somebody,
Mm,
sometimes you can sum up how like the kind of person they are, and if you can, whether or not you can have a deep connection with that person or
right,
not.
right.
Whether or not it happens, but you know how real you can be with that person. So some people you can expose certain things to, and some people you know like you just can't.
Right. I would
Yeah.
have to agree with that. I would have to agree with that. But with everything, you've always been maternal. You've always been, yeah, you have. Like, I remember this one particular time, it was my intern year, second year. I don't remember. One of them crazy years when I was I was on cardiology rotation. And you know how in our residency program and your fellowship program, we were busy. Okay? Busy, busy, busy.
Insane.
And I remember that day you were so busy. We were both in the stairway, and you're like, girl, I don't know how to do this.
I don't. And as a matter of fact, you brought that up. Like, I remember seriously thinking about quitting fellowship my
Wow.
first year. Like, I really did because it was, I felt really beat down,
Mm,
and it was the first time in all of my training, I guess, and
right,
education where I felt like maybe I don't want to go any further.
right. Like
And
you were
that
not
was
enough. Like
like I was not
the
enough.
imposter
Like
syndrome is real.
I was an imposter,
Yeah.
definitely in the first year.
Mm-hmm.
And because we were Q3, and our days were so long. And then once January started, it got bad because then one of the three of us were taken out and put into the ICU. And so
Whew.
that just leaves two of us to take call. And
Wow.
every now and then one of the seniors would help fill in. So we're not
Right.
Q2, but it
Right.
just became so bad. And I remember, and as a matter of fact, I'm sure my mom remembers this, but it was January, I was on calf, and it was just horrible. And I was getting home like 10, 11 o'clock at night. And one night I was on call and it was 2 a.m. and I'm on my way back into the hospital. And I called her, woke her up in the Caribbean now, back home in the
Wow.
Caribbean.
While she's
And I was just
relaxing.
crying while she's sleeping. And I was just crying and telling her, Mom, I can't do it. I was like, Mommy, I cannot do it. I cannot go any
You
further.
know, Mama Tammy went and called her prayer warriors now.
I mean, it was just terrible. And she's like, Tammy, don't do anything yet. just wait there. I'm gonna come. I'm gonna
Oh,
come.
wow.
And so she came like in February. So a couple of weeks, later,
Hmm.
got a flight. She came and she stayed with me and my sister through June because my little sister was living with me
I
at the time.
remember that. Yeah.
And she stayed with us until June just to get me through the end of my first year.
Wow.
And that's how I made it through my first year of fellowship, her and my little sister.
Mm.
I mean,
Thank God for family. Thank God
and
for
that's,
family.
I mean, family that loves you and will try to support you and help you because you have
Right.
some family that don't care enough about you to make that effort.
Well,
So,
I tell people there's family and then there's relation. I got
mhm,
relations don't mean they're family. You know
you're
what I'm
right.
saying?
That's a good way
Family
of putting it.
family will do that. Family got
Mhm.
your back. Family, there's love.
Mhm.
So yeah, of course, there are a lot of relations. Yeah, I
Mhm.
know him. We're related by
That's a
blood.
good way to put it.
Yeah,
Family
but
versus
don't
relation is
yeah,
true.
don't mean their family, but real family would do that if they can. Obviously not everybody can, but some people, if they can, they will do that.
Mhm. Mhm.
So we thank God for
Yeah.
our mamas. Um, but I was even say that to be that, even in your stress, you are still giving someone like me advice. So I've always
Oh,
seen, and I remember thinking, girl, I remember thinking she's gonna be a good mom. And that's why this whole not the side eye.
wow.
Ah, that-
If only.
that's why this whole conversation about infertility is a little bit, obviously you're the one bearing the burden. But there's a part of me that's a little bit hurt by it because I know that you're gonna be a fantastic mom. You
Oh,
are going
thanks.
to be a fantastic mom.
I think
Um,
so too. I think so too.
yeah,
It's
you
it's
will.
it's it's funny you should go there because that has been such, I don't know, it's been a personal journey. It's been difficult. It's been enlightening, it's been disappointing. It's been all of these things because at that point in time in my life, I would never have expected to be dealing with that issue,
Right.
and to face it like I knew it was this concept that was out there,
Mm-hmm.
but wasn't really personal, and I really didn't think that there was even a possibility
Right.
that I would be, how sometimes we can know about something, be maybe around something, but not really be connected to it.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those
Mm-hmm.
things like, oh, it's so sad, and then you just
They
keep
just keep it
moving.
moving.
You just
Right.
keep it moving. But now it's really personal because it's happening to me, and it's funny because and my little sister is so different from me, but I remember her saying, because I remember thinking, oh my God, I'm 33, 34. I wasn't dating anybody serious, had no prospects. And my little sister, who is a mess, she kept saying, girl, I told you, you need to freeze them eggs. You better
Ugh,
freeze them eggs. I was like,
girl.
what?
And she's
Don't
not
you
even in
freeze no eggs?
medicine.
She's not in medicine. She was just like, just spouting off at the mouth,
Hmm.
just spouting off at the mouth. She's like, look, I'm here to tell you. It's something that I never even thought about.
Right.
Somebody in medicine who knows that it's possible. I never even thought about it. But she just randomly, she's like, girl, you better freeze those eggs. And and that's what I would tell anybody between the ages of 30 and 35. If you are not close to being where you are going to be pregnant, you need to go ahead and freeze the eggs. And my
Right.
response was, I think ignorantly,
Hmm.
oh, I don't need to freeze my eggs. I'm going to be fine. And
Hmm.
it's really expensive.
Right.
I mean, because it is. It's not
It
cheap
is. It's
going through
not
the
cheap.
process, it's
Yeah.
expensive, but it becomes even more expensive if you end up on this end
Right.
and you have to
IVF,
go,
IUI, multiple
all that
rounds,
stuff. And then,
medicines.
yeah, and a lot of institutions don't pay for that. You're
Right.
not guaranteed to have a job that's going to pay for those kinds of things.
Mm.
So, you know, I thought because I looked young that maybe somehow this physician
Black don't
stupidly
crack.
thought,
Black don't crack.
I don't know. I don't know why I thought that that meant something. That yeah, I me and my sister who's 10 years younger than me, we can pass off for twins, and somehow that kind of fooled my brain into
Right.
thinking, "Oh, my eggs are going to be just fine." Keep in mind, they have no relation to one another at all. But for some reason, psychologically, that's what I told myself. Or maybe sometimes it's just hard for women to think about, we're so high powered,
Right.
we're in our careers, we're dedicated, we're, achieving and ambitious. And so maybe in our minds, it's hard for us to think about having that
Okay, we
potential
do both.
flaw,
Right, right.
you
Oh
know,
yeah,
like,
that's that. Yeah.
like, no, no. And plus, all this delayed gratification that we have to do,
Hmm.
conceptually, I think maybe I thought, no, I'm just delaying everything,
Do you
you
know
know.
something I realized? I think going through medical school and residency and fellowship, we always feel like we're young until we go back home and we see our friends have started lives. They have they have a house, they
That's
have their
true.
own cars, and we're still using our old cars from college, you know. And I think it gives us a false sense of youth,
It
because
is.
when you're in training, you still feel like you're a student because you
Mm-hmm.
never finished. And I almost wonder if that was kind of like what you were thinking. Like, I'm not done. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you know,
Exactly.
I mean, what are you talking
It's
about? I'm not there yet.
yeah, it is. It was like a false sense of youth. And I was like, well, no. I was like, psh, I'm not even 40 yet. You know?
Right, right.
I mean, I am now, but still,
But at that
and
time, this was
I was
10 years
thinking,
ago. This was 10 years ago.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I was thinking, you know, I think there a lot of women have maybe, I don't even know what the word is, just this unrealistic expectation of what's going to happen between the ages of, say, like 38 and 50,
Right.
because it's different for everybody,
Mm,
and in my mind, I thought, hey, it doesn't get really bad until you're 45 or
mm-hmm.
something like that, and this is coming from the mind of somebody who's not dumb, I'm educated, but I still allowed myself to fall into the trap
Not
of,
only are you educated, you're also a physician. You've also gone through OB rotation. You're also,
yeah,
and the only reason why
yeah,
I'm bringing all this out is to let people know that this has nothing to do with being smart or being, or not knowing. Yeah, a lot of
hmm,
people don't know, but there's a
hmm,
part of us that's always thinking, it just will happen to me. It just will happen
exactly,
to me.
exactly,
So,
exactly. I think it's really easy because you separate and you compartmentalize all of the education and all of the doctor about you, but then you become a woman who wants to be a mom,
right.
and that feeling kind of overtakes any good sense of
Mhm.
science that you have. Um,
Do you
and it's,
think do you
yeah,
think maybe in our profession, um, I feel like there is this false sense that can be an amazing subspecialist if you're a woman and you have children and you have all this. So I'm not even going to worry about that because, like you said, fellowship was crazy busy. So why would I even be thinking about freezing my egg at this point in time, you know. And if we
Mhm.
look at all the women that were ahead of us, most of them, I'm talking about the attendants. I can only think of one attendant that had 3 kids and always looked fly,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Right? In
Exactly.
her
Exactly.
stilettos. The
A
rest either had
stilettos.
the rest either had stay-at-home husbands or were unmarried. So in our mind, it's like, can I really do both? And I know you've always wanted to be a mom, but whatever is subconscious, it was
Mhm.
like, can I just finish this and get this down first? And I'll deal with that later, you know?
Yeah.
So you're not thinking, this is my life and this is part of my life. And a lot of my podcast talks a lot about balance. And I'm almost wanting to not switch it around, but the more I talk to people, the more I
Mhm.
think maybe it's not even balance, it's more harmony. Like you're
It
having
is.
together, right? I could
Yeah.
be a banging physician and also start preparing for my life. I could do
You can
both.
do both. But you did both.
I did
And
both.
you did both
But the
and you
reason why
survived
I did, it was hard,
but
very
you
hard.
did it. And now you're like hashtag super mom and super doctor.
Well, via God's grace.
Well,
God's grace.
God is the foundation for anything and everything. Okay, so
And
everything we say is about surviving is
right,
based on the grace of God.
via the grace of God. I laugh, but you know what though? I feel like I may have been you though. If in medical school, I remember I was in my OB rotation in medical school, and what we had an OB physician who was female also there, and we used to have like this breakout session where we'll talk about different topics, and the topic was about fertility and infertility. I mean, they didn't go in deep because we're in medical school. It was just more like the general concept of it. And she showed us the graph about where how much eggs, like all your eggs you
Mhm.
have it at birth and at age, I think it was like 22 or 23, and I don't remember offhand, but I could see that curve just kind of dropped drastically at about 24, 25, and it starts to decline as you get older, and then you get another major drop at like 35, you
Oh
know.
yeah.
I want to say I don't really remember per se, but I want to say that's how that curve was. And I remember saying, wait a minute, that's how old I am right now. You're telling me that if I'm gonna have a child, I should have had it 2 years ago because that's when I'm most fertile, you know? And she
Mhm.
said, yes, like without blinking. I was like,
Mhm.
oh, but I'm still in medical school. And she goes, well, you have to know what you want. And I had my first child in medical school. And mind you, by this time I was now married and I wasn't about to have
Mhm.
any kids without being married
Mhm.
personally based on me. And I said, well, medicine is hard. When's the best time to have a family? And she says, the best time to have a family is when you have the support system to take care of that family. But just know your eggs are not waiting for you. And she was very blunt. And she was, she was
But I think that that's what women need to hear, right?
I,
Because we've made so many advances in everything, say in the last several hundred years, but women's bodies are still set up to be most fertile. Like when women used to get married, like as soon as they became a woman and had their period,
right.
like centuries ago. Our
Yep.
bodies are still set up like that, where between
Hmm.
the ages of 13 and 25 is when you're most fertile,
Right.
because that's women used to get pregnant and get
Exactly.
married that early. But now, things have advanced, but our bodies have not changed.
They have not changed.
You are born with a fixed number of eggs, which I think is surprising to a lot of women. Going through
Hmm.
this process, I've had to educate my sisters who did not know a lot about this. And I mean, I know these details kind of from a scientific perspective.
Right.
It just didn't click with, the part of me
Personal.
that wants to be a mom and felt like I had to get my career first, and the fact
Hmm.
that I wanted to be married before, starting a family.
Right.
But we're born with a fixed number of eggs, and they just keep declining as you get older. I mean, you lose some, and then I think like after birth or sometime in your toddler age or something.
Right.
But then once you start puberty, that's it.
It's
It's
like starts
all
drastically.
downhill from here. I mean, all down here. And men don't have that problem. You
No.
know, men
No.
don't have that problem. So I think the world is set up for it to be a challenge for us career wise, because we're the ones that physically have to go through it. And
Right.
also, from the physical standpoint, because we can get to a point where our bodies are unable to reproduce. Men don't have that limitation.
Right.
Um, you know, I don't know, maybe it's a curse. It's our curse or
No,
whatever.
I don't think it's a
But
curse. I feel like God, God probably wanted us to just have kids and be done with it and chill,
yeah,
you
you're
know.
right. Having kids, the potential to have kids forever is not something, because mothering, like I look at my mom and other moms out there, I look at moms and I think you guys have to give so much of yourself.
Right.
It makes sense that you're not able to keep doing that as you get older.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think, like, I mean you have great dads and wonderful fathers and all of
Of
that, but
course.
boy, the mothering, being a mom, that's on a
Hmm.
whole different level of
Right.
emotional investment that I guess that's not sustainable.
Yeah, I think it's something we definitely need to start talking about. And I also
Hmm.
think that's something we actually need to start talking to our little sisters about, our
Yep.
kid. Like even I don't know when is the right time to talk to your children about stuff like that. But I think once you start talking about puberty and
Hmm.
you educate them, that's a good time to tell them about, oh, just so you know, you have this amount of eggs and you reach this amount. I think it's more of an education thing. I'm not saying tell
Yeah.
your children to go get married at 18 and 21 or
Right.
whatever. But I think you just have to make it a matter of fact. It is what it
Yeah.
is, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and
I
then
think that's important.
yeah, and I think also, I don't know if part of it also, like with our cultures, it's one of those, I don't want to hear you having any boyfriend till you're done with school type of situation, at least in Nigerian culture.
Hmm.
Um, and then as soon as you're done with school, all of a sudden they're like, oh, when you getting married? When you having my baby? You know,
I know.
and
I remember distinctly having this conversation with my dad, because he, from from the very beginning, would say things like he doesn't want to deal with, and this is a Caribbean dad, right?
mhm,
With any teenage pregnancies, and you know all these things, and it's all these threats, and all these that fathers don't want to see happen for their daughters.
of course,
But
yes.
I mean, it took a little bit longer. But by the time I turned 30, the conversation switched to, when am I going to get a grandchild? So for me, it went all the way up to age 30. And,
Wow.
and then it's like, well, I was like, well, wait a second. 3 years ago, you were all about my education. And now all of a sudden,
Right.
the conversation has changed. And they
And
love it. They
I
love the
know
grandkids. They turn
they
into
do.
fools for the grandkids. Oh my God. I don't even recognize my parents. I don't.
The things, the the things you would never get away with. All the grandkids get away with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so and it's one of those things where it's like we're type A personality, obviously. Like we want to excel in everything we do. So we don't want anything. And I think even more than our parents wanting us to focus on our education, I think we ourselves wanted to excel in our
Mhm.
education. Um,
Yeah.
and to be honest, yes, even though I was giving that great advice, if I was not in a committed relationship, I probably would have still be single, you know. Would I have thought to freeze my eggs? I don't know, you know.
Mhm.
It's hard to say. I probably would have thought I was fine too. Especially when I think about the age that my mom had me. My mom had me at 32 and I'm her
Mhm.
first. And my mom had my younger sister at 30. I'm 7 years older than her, so at 39. You know, so in my
Mhm.
mind, I'm gonna think, well, my mom's good. What you
Mhm.
talking about? You know, I don't know how many
Yeah.
kids your mom had. You're like, shoot, mom is fertile. So
Yeah. And I think too there are a lot of anecdotal stuff that get into your head about that because my mom had my youngest sister. I guess she was around 36 and but there are a lot of people out there like, "Oh yeah, my mom was 42 or you
mm,
know, whatever and things like that." So there's enough anecdotal stuff out there to also help you to fool your mind
right.
into not thinking about it. But and I'm not saying this
I
is
mean,
going to
even
happen
like
to
all the
everybody.
celebrities, right? You hear about all the celebrities having kids at 45. And the first thing I tell people is like, first of all, you don't know how they had that child. You don't know what
Exactly.
fertility doctor helped them. Don't go ahead and sit there thinking I can have a child at 45. You could. I don't know.
Mhm.
I'm not God. But at the
Right.
same time, you just have to be prepared
Mhm.
that that just may
Mhm.
not be your path,
Mhm.
you know? And I'm not saying you can't be a boss, but if you want to be a mommy, you also got to plan for that. You could be a
Yeah.
boss and you could be a mommy, and you got to
Mhm.
have some kind of plan to get to that stage. You know,
Yeah.
just like we in physician as physicians, we had girl, you know, from high school, we had been like 3 years of medical, 4 years of medical, 3 years. We had it planned to the T.
I know it's true. My sister says that all the time. She's like, your whole everything has been like planned out and you
Right.
knew exactly. I was like, because that's what it had to be in order to accomplish what I wanted to accomplish. You have to know the direction that you are going
Exact.
and to be prepared for it. I didn't, at a young age say, "Oh, I am going to plan everything specifically."
Right.
No, I
Right.
I figured out what I wanted to do and realized this
This
is
is the
what
things
needed
I
to
need to do to get
these are the
there.
things I needed to do to get there and I
Yeah.
did them.
And I
And
think
so
when the advice I'll give the youngest coming up is just as you will plan for your future is just not your career. Whatever your future is, see it as a
mhm,
whole. When I ask you, where do you see yourself in, let's say, 25 years, right? You know how you
mhm.
get that question during
Yeah.
interviews or whatever. You're like,
Mhm.
oh, I see myself as the director of a wonderful blah, 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 blah,
Mhm.
blah, you know? Also think of yourself like, are you married? Are you single? Do you have
Mhm.
kids? What if you're not married? What are the scenarios? You know, those are the kind of things that I think
Mhm.
we need to as plan the whole thing as opposed to just the career aspect of things. And I think that's the advice I'll start giving people. I am going to have Dr. Ibrahim Jimoh. She's a REI specialist out of
Nice.
Dallas, actually,
Mhm.
Dallas. And initially, I was going to have you guys together, but the time it
Mhm.
just couldn't work.
Mhm.
So I'm going to talk to her more extensively, like, what can we do? You know, like,
Mhm.
I freezing eggs, I hear that a lot, but what does that even entail? You know?
Yeah,
So
she can
I
go into detail about it. Like the
right.
one thing I did end up telling one of our other friends, close friends, is that even if you don't know, having gone through the process, I
Mhm.
realize now that I didn't even maybe have to go through to the whole freezing eggs part, right? You
Mhm.
can actually just do labs to figure out
Where you're at.
what your ovarian reserve is.
Mhm.
And maybe if it's starting to trend down, that's when you might want to think about going forward with freezing eggs.
That's
But if
true.
your numbers look really great, maybe it's like an annual thing.
Mm. That's
Like
true.
I just don't think that enough people talk about it for women to realize that this is a huge problem, or it
Exactly.
can be a huge problem. I wish somebody would have sat me down and said, "Hey, you're 33. You are not in a committed relationship. You want to
Mhm.
wait until you get married to start a family. Um, and you're in this career that is gruesome and time consuming. So why don't you get, you know, your labs checked, your hormone levels checked to see
Mhm.
what your ovarian reserve is? Because you're heading into a time period when a significant decline is going to start happening at some point, and you want to know where you are. I mean, women,
Yeah.
I know that those labs are labs that, REI doctors specifically do. And so maybe it doesn't have to be like an annual checkup labs, like your
Mhm.
cholesterol and all that stuff.
Right,
But
right.
I think women at a certain age need to start being referred to have that kind of stuff done, especially when they're in the careers or they're very career oriented,
Right.
like
And
we
want kids
are,
in the future, because
and
not
want kids in the
everybody wants
future.
kids. Yeah.
Yeah, because I do feel kind of part partly that my ignorance, my blissful ignorance, allowed me to think that it was impossible that I would have this problem. But I think also, too, as educated as I was, I don't think enough people talk about it.
Right.
It's not out there enough. So I feel kind of cheated in a way because if it was more real,
Discussed. Yeah. Yeah.
discussed, you know, and
Even
and
within
we
our profession, we don't talk about it. And there are a
we don't talk
lot of
about.
females that I know have gone through it. I mean, not that I know have gone through it,
Yeah,
but we knew probably went through some kind of
yeah.
IVF, but we just don't talk about it.
Hmm.
And I think this is why this podcast or episode or show is so important. Like, not necessarily putting all your business out there to say exactly this is what's going on, but just to let people know that listen, it can happen to anybody. It has nothing to do with how smart you are, how educated you are, how beautiful you are. Because Miss Tammy here is gorgeous.
You too, sis.
And
I love
how old are
it.
you, Tabby?
40. I
She is
turned 40 in February.
she is 40 and she looks like she's 25. I look older than Tammy. Let me just tell y'all right now.
Stop it. You tripping.
You know,
There you go.
you got
See, that's the foolishness that filled my head. Had me thinking that I looked young. So I
oh
must
my
have had
god.
eggs.
You know what? You know what though? Your age is 25, but them eggs are still 40.
Okay. No, ain't that the truth? Ooh, child. Girl. It's
You know?
but it's been an enlightening experience, like I said,
Right.
and so it's not been all negative, and I'm going through it with my husband, who's really supportive and
And
really
fantastic.
amazing. I
Right.
know he's so sweet. And so, I think the thing that's been most enlightening for me is that the kind of physician that I am, I work with a lot of patients that it can be very dangerous for them to have children. And I
Mm-hmm.
have this speech that I give to them all the time. There are different ways of having a family, and you don't have to have your own baby, and
Right.
all this wonderful, well rehearsed speech. And then here I end up in a situation where I may have to start a family in a different way than I
Right.
had anticipated.
Right.
And that has been enlightening, but truly humbling,
Mm.
because I don't think it connected with me how devastating that
That is
is
for people. Yeah.
for other people.
Mm.
And for me, it's a spiel that I give to patients, and I mean it. I'm sincere because I could tell that it means a lot, but
Right.
it became very deeply personal
Mm.
when I started to have this struggle. And so that has definitely changed the impact, um, that the influence now that I have on these patients when it comes to this particular situation, because it's very real to me now.
Right.
Whereas before it wasn't that real. I was being caring and
Yeah,
compassionate and
you were empathetic and you understood it, but
mhm,
I feel like it's a little bit different when you head chill. I was talking to one of my patients the other day and they had to have like real surgery, like stage
mhm.
1, like really bad surgery.
Wow.
And and I was like, I had to stop myself because usually I'm like, don't worry, we'll take care of them and blah blah, and they're just sobbing. And I was like, you know what? I am not in your shoe and I'm not even going to pretend I understand. My child had a tonsillectomy and I about died, you know? And until my child went through that, I was like, can you chill? Like, you refer people for things that are 100 times this. I walked in
Exactly.
there and I was like, I want to know who the anesthesiologist is. I want, like,
Yeah, it's
I was
it
not the
it
best patient mom. Let's just put it out there.
it definitely takes it up several notches
Right,
when it becomes personal.
right. And even though all she had was a tonsillectomy, I came back and I became a better physician for it because I was like, okay, all my child had was getting her tonsils out, and I'm here acting a fool, and I expect this families to be understanding
Yeah,
of this.
for even more serious surgery.
Right, like really serious surgery. So I'm not saying this is why God, this is happening to
Hmm.
you or whatever, but I love the fact that you're able to see the good out of it. It's made you stronger. I know for a fact it's made you stronger and closer to God, you know.
Girl, because
I
when you don't have a choice, I mean, the only way that you survive these situations and come out still being a whole person is because, you have God in your life. That's the only way that you can do it. Like he's been there from the very beginning, and I can tell that my relationship is definitely stronger, and because so much is going on. Sometimes you feel like there are just so many things that are going wrong in your life or that can go wrong. And like, who else are you going to turn to?
yeah.
He's the only person that can help you through, because if it does go wrong, you're going to need somebody to lean on.
Right. Another question is I always wonder with the whole infertility thing, how do you feel
Mhm.
like it's affected you at work? Do you feel
Oh my
like,
God. Well, here's the problem, right? It's time consuming.
right?
So it affects it because you have to have time to be able to do it. I
Mm,
mean, everybody knows that it involves, hormonal changes, so you're taking shots and all of that. But you also have to go to your doctor almost every day for labs and ultrasounds.
mm,
We don't really have the best job when it
right.
comes to having flexibility to do that kind of stuff. And so it's tough. But REI doctors, they understand that, and I don't know, you make it work. And hopefully you're in an environment where, the schedule can be flexible,
Mm,
and the visits aren't necessarily very long.
Mhm.
These particular visits can actually be very quick, but you still need to be able to get in and out, in about an hour, hour and 30 minutes the
So it's
most.
it's one of those things where you can't hide it from people at work. You got to let them
You
know that was.
cannot, you
Uh,
cannot. And so that was difficult actually because my husband is a very private person, a very
right.
private person. I am very open and I'm happy to tell the world about everything. We're actually complete opposites in a lot of things, that being one of them. I could just meet you, and if I feel like I have a connection, I'm
Right.
okay to tell you my life
Of course.
story.
Why not?
I just why not? It took a little bit for him to understand
Right.
that we have a schedule, okay?
Mhm.
The people that make the schedule have to know that I'm going to need time for doctor's appointments, if we have enough eggs for egg retrieval, if
Right.
things go well for implantation. Those are things that have to happen, and I can't be at work. So I have to let some people know. Everybody don't have to know, but at least the people that make the schedule,
Of
maybe,
course.
there are certain key people that will have to know. And
Mm.
then in my case, several other close friends.
Yeah.
But but yeah, you can't keep it because there will be absences.
You're right.
And if you are in an environment that is at least flexible, and our job, like for me, we don't have a clock in and clock out, right?
No. That's.
But we tend to get to work early,
Mhm.
and a lot of days we
Leave
tend to
late.
leave work late anyway. So there is flexibility in the sense that unless you're scheduled to be somewhere, like your actual service time, you know, or in the echo lab, those are days that you don't really have a ton of flexibility.
Right.
I kind of gave up our, but
That's okay. I could
you
edit
know, for there's certain positions, certain times, certain job
it.
requirements.
Another thing I've always wondered about with I have another close friend of ours who's also going through this. Um and hers is a little bit different, but it's just as yours hits my soul, hers hits my soul as well. And I always wondered how, as a mom of three, right, you want to
Mhm.
share with your close friends how to be respectful of your infertility, but at the same time, not take away from sharing with you. Does my question make sense?
Oh, yes, yes, yes. So, in other words, you think that it might be insensitive to share about your
Yeah,
children?
yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. So, here's the
Or
thing
how
with
can I
that.
do it where I don't think I'm insensitive, but like I know there may be people out there that are like, you know, my best friend is going through this and I'm here with my fifth child. How am I gonna tell her? You know what I'm saying? Like
Oh, yeah.
how
But that's a hard one because I think it's very personal and individual. For
mm,
me personally, I actually enjoy it because of how I feel about kids, and it's almost like I could live vicariously. And if I know that you are a true friend,
right,
then I don't want you to hide or be nervous about, sharing. Otherwise, you're holding back,
mm,
you know? And
yeah,
and I can't be a true friend to you if I get like upset or bitter about it. For me, it's more, oh, that's going to be
yeah,
so great when I could do that
yeah.
one day or talk
Right,
about it. And I
right,
know that, and that's how it's coming. It's from a place of love and joy and, just friendship. And I think for the other person, it's the same way too. Your sharing is not coming from a place of malice or intentional, like, you can't
right.
help it. How are you not going to share about your kids? Like you're a mom. That's what moms do.
You know I do, girl. Like for people that don't know, me and Tammy are so close. We went through a moment last November and we had to help each other out. And during our Skype calls, like my kids will like jump on and I have to like
Mhm.
stop, hold on, guys.
I know, but like that is a natural thing. We that's not something that we could prevent,
Right,
and so, you know, I, for me personally, that's why I say it's personal because there's some people that are not going to be able to separate it out.
right,
They're going to be so consumed by the disappointment that they're not going to be able to be happy for others in that
right.
way.
And
But I think that's where our relationship with God comes in. I'm not saying that it's
amen.
perfect and it's something you have to work on every single day. I have disappointment about it a lot, but the only way me personally can get through and to stay whole and not let it consume me or turn me into a really bitter person is to try to stay strong in my faith. Some days are better than others,
I hear
but
you.
for the most part I think it's I think I'm okay. I
Yeah.
don't it doesn't bother me at all. And I'm part of that too is my faith, and also I my husband is just wonderful. If nothing else, I feel very blessed that we
Uh,
ended up together. And so I am gonna focus on the blessings that God gave me as opposed to the
man.
blessings that I have not yet received. I'll say that.
First of all, I will say delay is not denial. And like you said, it may be a different way where you start your family, but I
Hmm. Hmm.
always see you being a mom. I always see you being a mom. Um, but one thing I will say for people listening to this is like you just have to know your friend. I
Yes.
feel like I gravitate towards people that are kind of like myself. So that's why me and Tammy, I think we gelled in the beginning to even start
Hmm.
off. There's some people that if they were not going to be happy for me, I probably wouldn't have even gravitated towards them in the first
Yeah.
place.
Hmm.
I don't know. So
Hmm.
you just kind of have to know what kind of friend the person is.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, there's some people that may be your friend, and if you realize that they're that kind of person, I think it's a conversation you need to have with them personally,
Hmm.
one on one. Like, hey,
Yeah.
I've noticed that every time I say something about this. I understand what's going on with you. Do you want me to withhold it from you? Because you also want to respect them and kind of like
Yeah.
help them through wherever
Hmm.
journey. And I feel like you've kind of matured in this journey, Tammy, because it's almost, I have a feeling it's towards the end of the journey because there's going to be good news. Like, I'm always speaking positivity into your life.
Praise
Um,
Jesus. Claim it. Let's
amen.
claim it. Yeah,
Amen.
and I
You know,
understand what you're saying, and that's so true. And that gets back to what we talked about before about when you meet somebody, you kind of scan their personality. You do a
right.
mental scan of their personality, and you can get, kind of a glimpse of whether or not you think that person is genuine and how real you can be with that person. And we probably screen a lot of people out of our close circle that way. Let me clarify.
without even knowing we're doing it. Without even knowing we're
Exactly.
doing it.
Exactly. And Lola and I are similar to
We're
at
very
our
similar.
core, but Lola will let you know how it is and not blink twice. Okay.
But with love. But with love.
Yeah, but with love.
Oh. All right, so this is one question I ask
Mhm.
everybody. If you can pick one thing or one trick or one hack or something that you do that kind of like helps you balance your life, what would you say it is?
That is such a hard question because depending on what the situation is, it might be different, but I would say my family.
Mm,
I have a very close circle of family that I talk to on a daily basis. And they're my three younger sisters.
Yay.
My youngest the most. My mom and my diva aunt. And she'll actually appreciate that I called her and
The
referred to
diva
her as
aunt.
diva aunt on this show. Yeah, and now my husband has taken that, part of, he's
Mm-hmm.
now included in that circle. Before, I mean, like I said, like my mom came for me during fellowship. I lived with my little sister, but like I talk to my sister's in Spain right now. I talk to her every day, sometimes twice a day. My mom is here, but if she wasn't here, I'd be calling to harass her every day. I would call her when I was going home post call. I would either call her or my aunt so that I could be on the phone with somebody to make sure I made it
Mm-hmm.
home post call. But
Right.
that's what keeps me grounded is family. We're very open. There are literally no boundaries, something that my husband is learning to cope with because
Your
he
American
grew up,
husband, he
yes,
needs to understand we no
because
boundaries.
he grew up in a house in a home with boundaries, and he is completely puzzled as to what's going on. And he's like, huh,
Uh,
so you guys just can live with your parents forever?
yeah. Yeah, like, yep.
Yeah, yeah, as a matter of fact, if I could have lived with my mom in med school, I would have. He's like, that's so different than here because most people want to get away from their parents as soon as they turn 8. I was like, no, no, not
Yeah.
so for
I
us.
think it's just the culture too,
It
Like
is the
I could
culture.
be 50, my mom could still talk to me like I'm a 2-year-old child.
Exactly. Yes, yes. She actually hemmed me up the other day 'cause she thought I was being too mean to Stephen.
Oh, Lord.
Oh, Lord. Girl.
Uh, all right, we're gonna wrap
Yes.
this up soon, but what's your favorite quote? A proverb, a inspiration, and why?
So I I will have to admit I never really lived by any one particular mantra,
Mm.
but um my favorite verse now, and it's one that I memorized as an adult. There are a lot of Bible verses that I memorized as a little child because you know how it is with the Sunday school,
Hmm.
and you're kind of forced to memorize a lot of Bible
It was
verses because
real Sunday school.
because it doesn't like you know for some kids it does, but for most kids it's something you have to do because your parents
Right.
are making you.
Hmm.
But it's different when you have your own relationship with God and
Right.
then you. So I guess 2.5 years now. At the time when we were going through a miscarriage, which I tell you is one of the worst things on the planet because you could have be having a miscarriage and it doesn't happen immediately. So you know it's going to happen and it's like an impending, and that's like the worst time. And as the process starts to happen, like, you're
Yeah.
experiencing all of these horrible things. And the Bible verse I learned at that time was Philippians 4, verse 6 and 7. Do not worry about anything, but in everything with prayer and thanksgiving, let your requests be known to God, and the peace of God, which passeth all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. And that's what helped me get through it. And it helps me to get through all sorts of different situations right now. And that's what I tell people that are going through tough times or tough situations is don't worry about anything because
Right.
every he already knows the end from the beginning, and there's
Exactly.
nothing you can do to change any of that. What your job is to bow to his will,
Mm.
and that's what's hard for a lot of people. It's accepting his will, and
Amen.
it's a work in progress, but it's the only thing that keeps me sane. Because if I know that it's his will, then it's okay.
Yes.
And that's how I make it through. I can't
That
be
is
mad
fantastic.
at his will, right?
Right.
If I'm a
Right.
Christian, I can't be mad at his will. So I have to get on board,
Right.
and that's what keeps me sane.
I love that provide. I'll have to go like look it up and write it up and put it up somewhere in the midst of my
Hmm.
insanity sometimes when everything is
Yeah.
going wrong.
Yep.
And like, a lot of times when things are just going wrong and you're like, what is going
Hmm.
like God, I know you got plans, but I'm not saying it. Like
Exactly, exactly. And then, he just lets it all at some point come
comes
to fruition, and
together.
you're like, "Oh my God, I can't
Now I
believe how
see
awesome.
it.
Oh my God, you were working in the
Yeah.
background all this time. You're so
Right.
awesome and amazing."
And you're like,
Yep.
what?
Yep. And like you talk about, and the peace of God which surpasses all
All
understanding. So
understanding.
regular people can't understand it, but
Right.
that is what I'm trying to hang on to. That peace, that he provides is what's keeping me from being consumed by all this hot mess that we're going through right now.
You know what, though? I think I've said it from my mouth to God's ears. You're going to be a fantastic mother. I thank you so much for coming on the podcast today and sharing your wisdom
Oh,
with
you're very
our younger
welcome.
ones. I appreciate you. You're going to be a fantastic
No,
mommy.
I'm so
You,
proud of you for doing this. I can't wait for this to take off. Have me
thanks,
on
Dad.
anytime. So,
Great. It was great. It was great. I think if anything we learned from today is one, you have to know what you want to be, what you want to do in the future, and you have to plan towards it. No matter either you want to be a professional or you want to be a mom or you want to be both. You just got to plan towards it. And whatever you're planning, it's depending on you as an individual. That's number one. Number two, if you do have friends that are going through some kind of infertility, the best you can do is support them by loving them. Just love them. That's the best support you can give. And if they're a Christian, you can pray with them or pray when they're not there. There are times during my prayer time, I just pray for some of my friends. They all gotta know I'm praying for them, from my mouth to his ears, That's that. Um, but when it's all said and done, everything works out for the best at the end of the day. So I appreciate you again being here, Tammy. You know I love
yeah,
you,
love
and I
you
can't wait
too.
to meet my little niece. I can't wait, or nephew. I can't wait. Um, I always like to speak positivity in your heart. I know right now it seems like you really don't see the light at the end of the tunnel, but I know it's there soon. And I will continue to put you in prayers, Tammy. I love you.
Yep, I will, and I will continue to hope.
Thank you.
All
Uh,
right.
all right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in to LollieTasking. This is Miss Tammy here with actually Dr. Tammy here with us. Until next time, have a good one.
Thank you for listening today. If you have any questions for me or have any interesting topics you'd like for me to discuss, please feel free to contact me via our website at LollieTasking.com. Our show notes, guest information, and other social media links will also be found on there. Finally, do not forget to click the subscribe button so you can be notified when our next episodes are available. If you've enjoyed this show, we would also appreciate you leaving a wonderful review. Till next time, I hope you have a harmonious life.